Good morning, it's 11:15, Saturday, 6th of November 2010. My name is Gabriel Raam, and I'm sitting here with a person that studies with me consciousness, consciousness training, consciousness coaching, Danny, and you asked me what?
Wanted to ask you if you think there is okay, I'll start it with a question and say that there is a bed that spirituality and competitiveness and competition are considered to be things that are not together, that are contradictory to each other. And I wanted to ask you what you think if there is no such thing as positive competitiveness.
Well, I'll deal with you with Socratic questions.
Okay.
What makes you bring up the issue of positive competitiveness?
Well, suppose two men are in the same room and they are interacting with each other. Some part of them is bound to be subject to competitiveness with each other.
Okay.
It can be either something that is pulling them together and making them achieve something better together, or it can be something destructive where one is going to win.
When you mean achieve something together, well, it can't be together. You're talking about a situation where me and you have got a goal,
Yes.
and each one is working harder at his goal because he wants to overcome or overtake the other.
Yes.
So it won't be together.
It won't be together, but it will be.
You will stimulate me to work harder.
Yes.
Okay.
Like
But
people who are running the marathon, if they're running alone, they will achieve less good results than they will achieve when
Okay.
they're running together.
So and it also says about writers,
Yes.
jealousy of writers.
Yes.
I think there's no argument about that. That on the level of technical achievements,
Yes.
there's a lot of research that was done that if you put few people in a room and give them a job, they will do it faster, not necessarily better. They
Yes.
will do it faster than if they sit alone.
Yes.
But you ask about spirituality.
Yes. I will. The question is, can competitiveness be put in context of spirituality, or it is absolutely contradicting?
Why would you ask such a question?
Okay, it's about two people I know who are studying together, and
Studying what?
consciousness. And I wanted to ask if I can harness their competitiveness and not make it something bad, but something that will be positive in the context of spirituality.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that here we need to make separation between competition and motivation.
Okay.
What you want is their motivation.
Yes.
The question that you ask, that if someone is competitive,
Mm-hmm.
can you take out the competitive edge
Yes.
and stay with the energy
Yes.
and bring the energy to where you want it to be?
Yes.
Well, I think if a person has got motivation and then he becomes competitive because he wants to be better than another human being, then I would say that his motivation got polluted.
Yes. So you're saying that motivation is something clean and primer to competitiveness.
Competitiveness is competition is a warp. It's a wrong turn.
Yes.
That motivation takes. The moment you want to be better than another, then you work with pressure, which
Yes.
comes from the outside,
Yes.
and not from pressure that comes from the inside,
Yes.
like motivation. And the flavor that you bring into it is not a flowing flavor, like with motivation,
Yes.
but it's actually becoming red and hot
Yes.
and pressing and angular, because the center of gravity is on the outside.
Yes.
And when you compete, you do it with anger.
Yes.
So never competition could be anything which takes part in spirituality. It should be an inner flow of
Yes.
deep energies towards the higher aspect of being a human being.
I understand.
And the moment motivation got polluted by competition, it destroys the motivation.
Yes.
And can actually go the opposite direction of spirituality,
Yes.
becoming hot and aggressive. And there is no way to repair competition. Once
Yes.
motivation becomes competitive, it's ruined, it's corrupted.
Yes. So if I understand you correctly, well, suppose there is some sort of technique. Suppose we are Buddhist and we are meditating, and you can meditate better and you can for a longer time. And if you would meditate by yourself, you would meditate for 2 hours. But if you sit with another guy, you would meditate for 6 hours. You're saying this is worthless.
Not only worthless, it's damaging.
It's damaging.
Because with spirituality, it's not what you do, but what happens in you when you do it, or what is the price that you pay in a life when you do it.
Yes.
And you should always stay quiet inside and peaceful and with no pressure.
And competitiveness is pressure.
It's pressure, it's forcing, it's aggressive, it's from the outside, it's got polluting effect, and any spirituality that you have in you either get wiped out because of this hot radiation,
Yes.
or if there's any motivation coming from the soul, when the hot radiation of competition is being introduced, the whole soul thing,
Yes.
the whole motivation just gets shrunk back into the soul, and you get locked up.
Yes.
Anything high or holy or pure cannot exist within the polluting radiation of competition.
Yes.
And the moment you introduce a poisonous radiation, the high radiation gets destroyed by the poisonous radiation.
Yes.
But the poisonous radiation doesn't get destroyed by the high radiation of spiritual motivation. So the moment you've got these two radiation within one complex, always the higher get damaged by the lower.
Yes. If I may ask, but you put two men in a room, it happens without, I don't know, it's like there is gravity. You put two men in a room, there is competition. So I want to add and say that to object to such competition, to move it back from competition to motivation, to maybe clean the competition out of the motivation.
I'm not speaking about cleaning competition.
Okay.
The moment competition is allowed, it's too late.
Okay.
The standards, the inner standards, should be that high that if you are with a fellow person to your endeavor in the same room,
Yes.
if you allow yourself to want to be better than him or to judge you by his achievements, then you already step every rule.
Yes.
And you crush the idea for which you're working. So the standards should be completely not to compare and not to live in comparison with any other human being. And the moment it happens, the response of the teacher or the leader should be very, very sharp and very, very powerful not to allow it.
Yes.
But competition is something that we are so used to. We are growing up with it. So you're absolutely right. The moment we are in the same room with another human being, we start to compete. And that's a big problem. I would say that 99% of all spiritual endeavors have been destroyed because of that fact. That the moment you get few people together, they start to compete with each other. And competition destroys spirituality.
So how can they escape this trap? How can someone escape this horrible fate that spirituality must die under something that happens?
Well, there is something which is called the observer.
Yes.
A person should develop part of himself that observes himself.
Yes.
You should do a checklist.
Mm-hmm.
When you run several times a day, several points that you need to watch in yourself.
Yes.
One of them should be, do I compare yourself to other human beings? Now, unless you sit in a room with other human beings, when you are not alone with them, but there is part of you which is detached,
Yes.
and is not being swept in to these low, powerful energies, unless you manage to detach this part, then you have no hope. You will be swept into competition, whether you like it or not. It will be more powerful than you, and there goes spirituality out of the window, and there the group starts to disintegrate. And most groups disintegrate because of competition.
Yes.
The only hope that I have is actually to start to separate you from you and to have two you in every situation. The you that participates and the you that observes you and gives you a report about what's happening in you. And the moment the detached you gives you a report that you are envious or jealous or comparing yourself to another human being, at that point you should fix yourself on a mantra of what is really, really important to you and blow out every other thought of competition that wants to come in. In other words, you should bombard it with positive energy and you should block it from coming to you.
Yes.
You can imagine walls, you can imagine throwing it out of your system. Do whatever you can, but the main important thing is to have an observer, to have part of you that tells you what's going on.
Yes.
I want every person which is coming to a state of being a master in anything should have an observer. If I have a chef which is a master, then he mustn't be swept in the act of preparing the food. Part of him should give him comments how good is what he is doing. If he identifies what he is doing, he can do all kinds of mistakes. Should have part of him telling him what's going on.
Yes. No such. So, if I understand you correctly, observer and separation of lower you and higher you is what.
I'm not saying lower you and higher you. You should separate from the low and the high an uninvolved you. It's not a higher you.
Yes.
It's uninvolved you. As you sit here and talk to me, there should be a Dani which is not in you, which is behind your shoulder, telling you all the time reports, telling you, now you're getting nervous, now you're getting upset by what Gabriel said.
Yes.
At the moment I'm concerned that I will not manage to implement what he's saying. I don't like what he said now.
Yes.
And you should see what is happening to you all the time. And when you spot competition, you should block it in every way possible.
Yes.
One end is seeing things naturally. Another end is repressing it and denying it.
Yes.
And in the middle, you have I don't know that it's happening.
Yes.
You should move from being asleep to what's going on and repressing to a third vector.
Yes.
Trying to see what is happening without being involved in it. The greatest problem is identifying with what's happening to you. If you identify, you don't know that you compete. You're so busy competing, you don't know you compete.
Yes.
Part of you should not take part in the act. Just give you reports.
Yes. And that's the way that to smoothen the atmosphere and to not to...
If you have part of you which is self-aware, you don't yet smooth the atmosphere.
Okay.
It's not guarantee of anything. You still have to do the work.
Yes.
Of blocking the competitive thing and not allowing it to come into you and killing it when it's small.
Yes.
But without self-awareness, there's no hope.
I understand. Thank you very much. This is my question.
Yeah, I understand your response. Your response is yes. I can say nothing about your answer because it's a complete answer.
Yes.
But who the hell wants to live his life not fully involved in what he is doing? Who wants to live his life only partially doing what he's doing and partially looking at what you're saying and giving comments?
Yes.
This is hell. Well, depends what is your definition of hell. My definition of hell is being over-involved with destructive processes and not knowing it.
Yes.
Taking part of you to make sure that you don't get involved with negative processes. It's not hell, it's in heaven, it's heaven.
Yes.
So, heaven is actually eating from the fruit of the tree of knowledge.
Yes.
And opposite from what they taught us. They
Yes.
taught us that
Letting go.
letting go is heaven. But there's no other way to live this existence without living a split existence.
Yes.
The most complete stage that you can arrive at is living split existence.
Yes.
A part of you observes the other part of you.
Yes.
If we want to live complete existence, we always will be in the hands of the dark forces.
Yes. They're always stronger and they always will pull you
And they will
down.
be there. You are with other human beings, you will compete. If you want to be complete and not to split yourself, you will be in the clause of competitive entity.
Yes.
If you want to make sure not to be in the hands of the dark forces, you must live with a split personality.
Yes.
It's good to have split personality. Because we are, it's not natural to have split personality. It's essential to have split personality. Because we live in a shit.
Yes.
We live captivated by dark forces of the ego.
Yes.
So the only way is to have split personality. It's not the best existence. It's better to be complete with what you do.
Yes.
But because we live in a shit, the only way out is to have split personality. It's the only way to sanity.
So this is absolutely turns around the sanity part because split personality is considered insane. And you're saying that split personality is the sanest thing that can happen, and the insanity is happening when you're unconscious of what you're doing.
Yes. You should grow out of yourself, part of you which observes what you're doing. Unless you live in a constant self-awareness, you will get lost in your life and be swept by the dark forces. You are not aware that that's what they're doing to you.
Yes. So you will compete and you will fight with other people and you will be egocentric and egoistic, and the only way to escape it is by being aware of it.
It's That's not the only way, that's the beginning.
That's the beginning. Okay, thank you very much.